Everybody knows the icon of sin, the skyscraper-sized titan you spend an hour turning into red paste at the end of Doom Eternal. But here's the thing. That wasn't actually his first appearance. In fact, this thing has technically been killed, resurrected, left to rot, killed again, rebuilt, and then killed again. And somehow, all versions of this icon is still canon. So, today I want to go through every single appearance of the Icon of Sin in the main storyline and explain what each version actually means to the story of Doom. Because believe it or not, this giant has become one of the most important characters of the entire franchise. And it all starts back in 1994. What's poppin', guys? Welcome back to another video. It's me, 2Bros1Game. As you can see, I have a brand new setup. And I bet you I sound a lot better than how I used to in my other videos. Woo, I don't know if you heard that. So, anyways, welcome back. I know it's been a little bit since I've actually recorded a video. And a lot of stuff happened, a lot of updates. I'll have a video about updating of the stuff I'm going to do. I'm kind of going to be reworking my channel a little bit, opening a second channel, all that kind of stuff, something I'm working on, music-wise, all that stuff. Anyways, I hope you all enjoy the video. I hope you guys join the server over here. And again, you can give me all kinds of ideas. This one was mine though. And let me know your thoughts in the comments. And I will all see you later. Let me know what it sounds. And if you prefer the crappy mic or if you like this new setup. All right, peace. Before we talk about the lore, we have to talk about expectations. Because nowadays, when someone says final boss, you're probably imagining something like Daboth, the Cyber Demon, and maybe even the Marauder. But in 1994, nobody had any clue what ID Software was cooking. After fighting through 30 levels of hell itself, you reach map 30, appropriately titled Icon of Sin. Only the Game never actually calls it that. That's one of the weirdest things about the original Doom 2. Nowadays, Icon of Sin is the official name of the monster, but inside Doom 2 itself, the creature is never formally identified. The level is called Icon of Sin, while manuals and supplementary material refer to it as names like the Gatekeeper or Baphomet, or simply just the final boss of Doom 2. John Romero later confirmed that Icon of Sin was always the intended name. So, what exactly are you looking at? Well, technically, a wall. No, seriously. See, the giant demonic face isn't actually a monster in the way that every other enemy in Doom is. It's a collection of wall textures surrounding a hidden target buried deep inside its skull. The face itself doesn't have health, the visible brain doesn't have health, the thing you're actually killing is hidden several meters behind it, but we'll come back to that in just a second. And what's interesting is that the ending text just after Doom 2 doesn't describe this thing as just a floating wall. It says it's the biggest demon you've ever seen. Then it goes to describe the entire creature thrashing around as it dies. That little detail is actually really important because despite what the engine shows us, the icon was never intended to literally be a head stuck in a wall. Obviously, the engine simply couldn't render something the size that its software had imagined. Instead, the face represents only the visible portion of an absolutely gigantic demon whose body exists beyond the walls of the arena. Even the original ending text described its immense body convulsing as it dies, reinforcing that what the player sees is only part of the creature. And that's something Eternal would quietly respect 26 years later. Now here's where the icon becomes more than just another boss, because every other demon in Doom has one purpose: to kill you. The icon doesn't. Instead, it creates demons. See, those flaming cubes it spits around the arena, each one randomly becomes another monster. Imps, revenants, barons, archviles, basically everything except a few cases like the Cyber Demon and Spider Mastermind. And there is no limit to how many it can spawn. If you somehow stood in that arena forever, the icon would literally continue creating Hell's Army forever, which is kind of genius from a storytelling perspective. You spent the entire game killing demons one by one, and then the final boss isn't stronger than every demon, it's literally the thing making every demon. Hell itself just stopped sending soldiers and he instead became the factory. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room, or the John Romero in the wall. If you've been around Doom long enough, you probably heard someone say the final boss is literally John Romero's head. And that's basically true. Hidden behind Icon's exposed brain is a sprite of John Romero's severed head mounted on a stake. That's the object you actually destroy to end the game, and yes, that is genuinely how the boss works. And it wasn't originally meant to be seen by players. The head exists in a hidden chamber behind the boss face, and because of how the original game handled aiming, players had to damage it indirectly with rocket splash damage. But why? Was Romero secretly the devil? Did killing him save Earth? Not really, it was just an inside joke. And according to composer Robert Prince, Romero accidentally discovered his own hidden head while exploring the map with cheats enabled, and everyone laughed, and they decided to double down on the joke by recording Romero saying, "To win the game, you must kill me, John Romero." They then reversed the audio, so when you enter the boss room, the icon greets you with what you think is complete demonic nonsense, except it isn't nonsense at all. Just reverse the audio, and that's exactly what it says. But here's where the modern Doom changes everything. Back in 1994, the icon wasn't some fallen titan, it wasn't a sentinel, it wasn't connected to the betrayer, it wasn't tied to Argent energy, it was simply the supreme demonic entity leading Hell's invasion of Earth. That's all Doom 2 needed. The story was intentionally minimalist. The icon represented the final obstacle between humanity and extinction. You weren't defeating some tragic fallen hero, you were killing the literal and physical embodiment of Hell's invasion. And there's something I really like about this simplicity, because there's no sense of prophecy, there's no like codex entry, there's no deep hidden lore or codex that you have to pick up. It's just the biggest demon you've ever seen, and you gotta go kill it. And what's really impressive though is that ID Software never threw this version away, because instead, 26 years later, they looked at this weird wall with John Romero hidden inside it and somehow made it one of the most important pieces of the lore in the entire franchise. Because according to modern Doom, the story didn't just end with the icon died, it had only just begun. So, the Doom guy had just killed the biggest demon Hell had to offer. Earth is saved, Hell lost its greatest weapon. End of story, right? But it isn't, because after Doom 2, the icon of sin just disappears for over 20 years, and for a long time, nobody really questioned it. Doom 64 begins after humanity has reclaimed Earth. The remaining demons are being hunted down by the UAC until one incredibly powered demon, the Mother Demon, begins resurrecting Hell's armies. The Doom guy does what he always does, kills her, but then he makes arguably the most important decision in classic Doom. Instead of going home, he stays in Hell forever. The ending tells us he chooses to remain there, ensuring Hell can never invade Earth again. At the time, this was just a badass ending. Years later, Doom 2016 in Eternal will reveal that this was the beginning of the Doom Slayer's legend. And now, here's where the timeline gets really interesting. Because most people know that the Slayer kills the Icon of Sin in Doom 2, but most people remember killing it again in Doom Eternal. But there's actually a second battle in between, one we never get to play, only hear of. Because after the event of Doom 2, Hell eventually resurrects the Icon of Sin and unleashes it during the Sentinel era. At some point before the events of Doom 2016, the Slayer defeats the resurrected Titan a second time, leaving it dormant once again. While that battle itself has, like I said, never been shown in game, later lore makes it clear that the icon had already been brought down before the events of Doom 2016. And that answers one of the biggest questions in modern Doom: why is the icon just lying there? Because the answer comes down to one weapon, the Crucible. Doom Eternal explains that Titans are unique among Hell's creatures. A Titan that has been subdued with the Crucible Blade remains dormant only when the blade stays embedded. Remove it, and the Titan can awaken once more. That's why the Slayer deliberately leaves Crucible Blades inside defeated Titans, even snapping off the hilt so no one can pull them free. But back in Doom 2, Doom Guy didn't have a Crucible, he just had a rocket launcher. So while he absolutely defeated the icon, he couldn't permanently imprison the way that the Slayer would later learn to imprison Titans. Hell eventually found a way to bring it back, and of course, the Slayer defeated it again. And by the time he reached Doom 2016, the Titan had once again fallen to a dormant state. When Doom 2016 released, everyone thought it was just another reboot. It was a new universe, you got a new Doom guy, it's a brand new story, just a Doom 3 situation, right? Then, players started to reach the necropolis. Embedded deep within Hell is a gigantic skeletal remains of a horned titan. A massive hole sits directly in the center of its forehead. And if you've played Doom 2, you immediately know what you're looking at. It's the Icon of Sin. Even better, id Software hid one of the coolest Easter eggs in gaming, in my opinion. You fire a rocket into that hole in its forehead, like the original boss fight, and the game plays John Romero's infamous backward message before rewarding you with the Doomslayer collectible. And at first, everyone assumed it was just fan service, a fun callback. But then people started reading the UAC logs. One cult documents it to tell its followers to imagine themselves worshipping before the Icon of Sin, even as it sleeps till the call of ages come. Remember, it didn't say it died, not that it was destroyed, even as it sleeps. That single line completely changes the context of Necropolis. The giant corpse isn't a trophy, it's just a dormant titan waiting to be called back into service. And looking back, Doom 2016 never stops to tell you, hey, that's the Icon of Sin. Vega doesn't say, oh, that's the Icon of Sin from 1994, Doom 2. It just leaves the evidence sitting there. The forehead wound, the Romero Easter egg, the cultist worshipping it, and the reference to his slumber. Everything was already pointing towards one conclusion. The Icon of Sin wasn't gone, it was waiting, and someone was about to wake it up. So, by the time June 2016, the Icon of Sin had already been defeated twice. Once by Doomguy at the end of Doom 2, and once by the Slayer sometime during the Sentinel era, leaving its enormous body dormant in the Necropolis. So here's a $1 million question. How does it come back again? The answer is one of the darkest stories in the entire franchise. And it starts with a father's grief. Long before he became the Betrayer in Eternal, he was Commander Valen, one of Argent D'Nor's greatest Knight Sentinel generals. He fought beside the Slayer against Hell for years and was respected throughout the Sentinel ranks. He also had a son, Marok. And according to the Dark Ages, Marok wasn't just another Sentinel. He was considered an exceptional warrior, some many believed would one day even surpass his father. Then, he died. If you've played literally any piece of media involved demons, you already know where this is going. Hell approached Valen with an offer. Betray your people, and we'll return your son. Grieving, desperate, and believing he had no other choice, Valen agreed. His betrayal gave Hell exactly what it needed to continue its conquest of Argent D'Nor. But here's the important part. Hell never intended to keep its promise. Not really, because demons don't make deals, they make traps. And this is where Eternal's Codex actually changes what the Icon of Sin actually is. For over 20 years, players thought the Icon of Sin was simply a really, really big demon. Then Eternal drops into this bombshell. Born from the tortured spirit of the Betrayer's son, it was by Hell's unholy design that the Icon of Sin was given flesh. They didn't resurrect Marok. They used him and they twisted his soul and they erased his humanity. His still beating heart became the anchor binding the Icon to existence. The Codex explained that the son would live again, but not as a human, instead becoming an inhuman titan bound to his former humanity only through this undying heart. And that's horrifying, because Valen wasn't reunited with his son, he just watched his son become the prison keeping Hell's greatest weapon alive. So is Marok literally the Icon of Sin? Kind of, and well, not exactly. This is where the wording gets really important. The games never actually say that Marok's body physically transformed into the giant titan. Instead, Hell used his soul and his immortal heart to give new life to the Icon. Think of it less as someone like turning into the Hulk and more of just becoming the power source inside an unimaginably powerful machine. The Titan is the Icon of Sin. Marok is the human soul imprisoned within it. And that's why later in Eternal, destroying the heart prevents the Khan Maker from controlling the Icon. Valen even tells the Slayer that...
Hear me, Slayer. When his heart is laid to rest, then his soul will be at peace. And so will mine.
Fast forward to Doom Eternal, Earth is already losing. The Hell Priests have done their job, and the Slayer is cutting through everything in his path, and so the Khan Maker makes one final gamble. She resurrects the dormant Icon of Sin. And this time, she doesn't just bring back it as a regular Titan, she upgrades it in massive armor of their own design and attempts to control it through Marok's still living heart. Samuel Hayden explains that this is a resurrection of the Icon, while the Codex notes that it's the Maker's intent to command it through the Betrayer's son. Unfortunately for literally everything, the Slayer shows up. And see, Valen gives the Slayer a ceremonial dagger and asks him to do what he never could. Free his son. So when the Slayer reaches Urdak, he doesn't stab just the icon, he stabs the heart. The moment Marok's heart is destroyed, the Khan Maker loses her ability to control the icon, instead becoming harmless. Though the Titan becomes completely unrestrained, rampaging toward Earth under nothing but its own rage. And it's one of the most ironic moments in Doom. The Slayer saves one soul by accidentally making the final boss even more dangerous. And according to Ark's research, the icon's mere presence begins breaking reality itself. The longer it remains on Earth, the worse the damage becomes. Eventually, the planet collapses, then space-time collapses, then hell consumes what's left, because it's not just an invasion, it could be an apocalypse on a universal scale, which means, for the third time in his life, the Slayer has to kill the same monster. Only this time, he's finally carrying the one weapon capable of making sure it stays down. And after all of that, we've finally reached the question everyone asks. Is every icon of sin actually the same icon? The answer is yes, but obviously, as I've stated, it's a little bit more complicated than that. It's got 3 deaths, but all in one history. The original icon appeared in Doom 2. Doomguy destroys it by firing rockets into the exposed brain hidden behind its skull. Hell loses its greatest titan temporarily, because titans don't just stay dead. And at some point after Doom 2, Hell resurrects the fallen icon, binding it to the tortured soul and undying heart of Commander Valen's son. The Codex described the icon as being born from the tortured spirit of the betrayer's son, while Samuel Hayden explicitly refers to the Khan Maker's ritual in Eternal as a resurrection, not the creation of a new being. The Slayer defeats it again during the Sentinel era, leaving the Titan dormant once more. That's the massive head that we walked past in Doom 2016. Then, the Khan Maker makes the single worst decision in the history of bad decisions. She wakes it up, covers it in Maker armor, attempts to control it, and starts the apocalypse. And for the third time, the Slayer kills the same monster, only this time he finally has a crucible, and instead of just defeating the Titan, he seals it. The Slayer drives the crucible blade into the icon's brain and deliberately leaves the blade embedded, just as he had done previously with another Titan and Terras Mavad. Eternal establishes that removing a crucible blade allows the dormant Titan to rise again, which is why he breaks the hilt away rather than retrieving the weapon intact. So, was it retconned? Not really, just expanded. Back in 1994, the Icon of Sin, like I said, it didn't need an elaborate backstory. It was simply Hell's greatest champion, the biggest demon you'd ever seen. And Modern Doom didn't erase that, it just asked a different question is, what if that giant demon actually had a big backstory? And instead of replacing the original story, it just built on top of it. Doom 2 fights still happen. Doomguy, Slayer, Flint, Taggart, he won. Hell just refused to accept defeat. And I think that's why the icon has survived for over 30 years, because every time it returns, it represents something different. In Doom 2, it was Hell's last stand. In the Sentinel area, it was the cost of betrayal, a father's grief weaponized against an entire civilization. In 2016, it's a reminder that even Hell's greatest weapon can fall, again. And in Eternal, it's the apocalypse that we help stop. The Ark Codex explains that the icon's mere presence on Earth begins breaking reality, eventually collapsing space-time and allowing Hell to consume what's left, even if left unchecked. But, you know, I think the coolest part about the Icon of Sin isn't that it's huge or what is one of the hardest bosses in Doom, or that John Romero's head is technically inside of it. It's that across more than 30 years of games, it's always represented the same idea. No matter how many times Hell loses, it always tries again. Every resurrection, every invasion, every prophecy, it's Hell insisting that eventually something will stop the Slayer, and every single time, the Slayer proves them wrong. So in conclusion, 3 battles, 3 victories, 1 Icon of Sin. Thank you all for watching the video. Thank you so much. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed this new audio. Hopefully it actually sounds well by the time I'm finished making it. I'm trying out some new editing styles. Let me know what you guys think of that. And like I said earlier in the video, I have a major update about where the servers go, the direction I'm taking it, you know, much of that's happened in my life. And I really hope you guys are here to support me. And like I said, go check out the Discord server. Hope you guys have fun. Hope you guys have a great day. And I will see you all in the next video. Peace.